Hello, I'm Mr. Solt. I'm just kind of doing this at the spur of the moment because with the coronavirus and school closing, I've been working on how to design online instruction for my students because in my classes I have a lot of students that struggle with attendance. So attendance being a real challenge to overcome. I've been working on how to do this online distance learning thing for students who don't necessarily show up to class because I want as many students to get access to the curriculum as possible. That's one of my priorities, and so online distance learning and how to create that for students has been one of my priorities this year and last. I don't normally do videos with instruction, right? Usually the instruction is provided in the classroom, so getting me live is why you want to come to class. And so far this year what I've been doing is I've been planning, I provide notes and kind of text instruction in the Google Forms or the classroom worksheets that I want students to complete. And so if they're not in class, they at least get the notes, they get the written instruction, and they can kind of try to piece it together themselves. This whole video component adds a whole nother layer on a thing, which takes time. One of these videos, usually to do one of these for one lesson, will take about 45 minutes to an hour to actually, for me to actually be on screen and talking and showing the kids what I want them to do. And then it will take another like half hour or more to then process the video, edit the video, upload the video, get it in Google Classroom, do all those kind of things. That takes time, and it all depends on how I'm kind of using a kind of a budget computer here, so mine's not the fastest. But just for those teachers that maybe are new to some of this stuff, I wanted to just do an introduction. I really don't have a good plan in my head. I just kind of want to talk out loud, explain, so this video is for teachers, to explain maybe how they could do distance learning. Now, this is just how I do it. You might see all sorts of ways differently how you want to do yours. Just telling you. So, distance learning for me starts with Google Classroom. I hope most of you all have Google Classroom at this point, but if you don't, here is what Google Classroom looks like when you sign in. You need a Google account, you sign in. I'm signed in under my district's login, and you want to create or join a class. So you want to create a class. If you're new to this, when you create a class, you'll have to add students. So I'm going to click Create Class, give it a name, give it a section, give it a subject, give it a room number, press Create, test class. I just actually want you to see what it looks like for those of you who haven't done this yet. Test class. Section 1, subject math, and the room is going to be 164. 164. Okay, so I'm going to create this. Again, I'm going to delete this class as soon as I get done because this is a test class. I just want you to see the screen. I want to try to make this as comprehensive as possible. Can you guys kind of see from start to finish? Okay, so this is the test class. Here's the class code. This is the code that kids will need to put in to find you on Google Classroom, right? You'll need to post that somewhere. You'll need to physically get that to the kids so that they can then use this to go to your classroom. You will then have to add people to this classroom. You'll have to add students, right? You'll have to invite students using their email addresses. And then once you get students in your classroom, here is kind of what it looks like. This is the stream. This is kind of like every time you post something new, it goes in the stream. This little tab here gives your classwork. You can create assignments here. I'm going to show you how to do that in a real classroom. We got to talk about people, and eventually you can put grades right here because we don't have any grades because we don't have any students yet, so we can't have any grades. Let me show you. Oh, I can't actually show you what it looks like in my classroom because anonymous stuff, right? I don't know. Okay, well maybe this, if I make this unlisted and only share it with teachers, that'll be the solution, right? I can't make this a public video because those kind of concerns here. So I have some. Here are my classes I already have. I'm going to delete test class later, but here's my geometry class. And here's what my stream looks like. Here I posted a new material, video instruction. I posted recent new material, online graphic. So this is the stream. Every time I post something new, students can actually interact with the teacher right here. They can click on something. They can make an announcement to the class, ask questions. But general news for the classroom can also be posted here. But assignments should be posted over here in classwork. I recommend that each assignment be giving a category. For instance, like Geometry Unit 1, Geometry Unit 2, and so these are the assignments I have right now for geometry, and Let me see. Should we start? And people. So we got some people in here now. So I've got myself in here. I've got some other TAs that are part of my Google Classroom, and again, all my students here. Some which have accepted my invitation, and some which haven't. And when I click the grades section over here, that's where students could see their grades. Now, I don't think I have any students in this classroom in particular who have been using, or very few who have been using the online components, right? Most of these students all like paper for one reason or another. So I've been grading this all physical paper packets, and let me show you what that kind of looks like. So step one to create an assignment is to know what you gotta have a learning target, right? You have to have, if you're gonna plan some instruction, you want a learning target. Now I don't know if I'm gonna have time to go run through how to create an assignment, but I'm trying to think if I thought I had maybe something that was partially made over here somewhere. I should have planned this better. I'm going to pause the video right here and try to find something that's partially made. Alright, so we're back on. So here is a lesson that's only, it's partially made at this point. So I already started this. So this is what's called a Google form. And for me, this is the way I do almost all my student classwork at this point. Most people who use Google Classroom, they'll use Google Docs. They'll use like a Google Word processor doc, or maybe sometimes spreadsheets. You don't see that too often. But mostly it's PowerPoints, like Google Slides, and Google Docs that are used in Google Classroom, and students have to create a document. That's great, especially for project learning, for students to create their own documents. But for the kind of work I often do, I often have like packets or worksheets for students, and I kind of want them to move through it. And then one of these, like what you're seeing right here, could usually be used for like 2 or 3 days of instruction. So I'll have more than one learning target. So this is going to be lesson 4, unit 3, lesson 4, proving lines parallel. So I already have my learning target here. I can use angles formed by a transversal to prove 2 lines are parallel, and then I will need standards, right? So and I have a second learning target too. Nope, sorry. This learning target is repeated. This learning target here repeated because I'm eventually going to take all of this information, I'm going to copy it, and that's going to go into the assignment. So when students see the description of the assignment, this is like the description of the assignment when I make it. This can also go into Power Teacher for your grade book. So you can so I don't know why I do that. I just stick this in with each assignment in gradebook, so that way at least the standards and the learning target are attached to the assignment. But I usually will throw in vocabulary here, and I think I'm missing some vocab here. Yes, I'm missing. Okay, I've got it here. No, this was a standard. So I'm missing vocabulary, which I'll need to put in. Let me show you how this goes about. How I go about doing this. I'm just going to open up a new form. If I was to create the next assignment, I didn't want to do that. That's okay. That's cool. Actually, I will do this because you kind of need to see it from scratch, right? You're going to start up a blank Google form. And again, if you want to do yours on Docs, you see a different way of doing this, that's fine. You're going to want to give your new Google form a title. Geometry, Geo, Unit 3, Lesson 6, right? I'll fill more of these things in later. And then you will want to go into settings, right? So here are the settings for Google Forms. I recommend that you collect email addresses because you want to know who is actually the actual person who is filling out this form. Go ahead and click response receipts if the respondent requests it. You want to limit your users to whatever you want to limit your users to, and usually I want to limit them to one response. If you want them to be able to complete a form multiple times and a new response each time, then you don't want this clicked. But if this is an assignment and you just want them to complete it once, I also click edit to submit for normal assignments because I want to be able to turn this back into them, and I want them to be able to edit it so they can turn it back in for a higher grade if they say so choose. I also want to have them see summary charts and text responses so that they can see what other students have said and that kind of thing. Presentation mode, I will have them show the progress bar. I do not want to shuffle the question order because I want them to see this in a particular order. But I do want them to see how far they've gotten. And then I do make all mine quizzes. If you are just grading like whether they did it or not. Did they do it, yes or no? You don't need to make yours a quiz. I actually want to give them an idea. I want actually to give them feedback, question by question. And so in order to do that, I want to make a lot of mine quiz. I want them to see missed questions. I don't always want them to see correct answers, because then you'll have that one student who will just fill out the entire form incorrectly on purpose with nonsense answers, see all the correct answers, and then go and just copy and paste the correct answers in. Sorry about that. And I do want them to see. So you'll have that one student who's really not going to be who's going to try to game the system, who's not going to really be engaged in the learning if I show correct answers. But with the right crew of students, maybe you want to show correct answers. And point values, I want them to see the point values, because sometimes I make like warm-ups a little bit more. I make check for understanding points a little bit more. I use the check for understanding questions as my not only my formative assessment, but sometimes also my summative assessment grades. Instead of spending a whole period on tests, I'll sometimes just use check for understandings, which I do daily as part of just their test grade, right? Because I don't provide assistance and support on check for understanding questions. I'll provide support on all the rest of the instruction. But those check for understandings, is the purpose of them is just, I need to see whether the students get it, whether they can reproduce it. Then you want to click Save. Okay, those are the basic settings for here. And then there's also some more settings down over here in Preferences. You want to collect email addresses. I want the default quiz point value to be 2, because I want to be able to give half credit, which will just be 1 point. So a full question, most of my questions are 2 points. Full credit is 2 points. If any reasonable answer at all, any reasonable attempt at learning, I want to give at least 1.4. I hate giving students 0 points for having they tried, they gave it a shot, and I'm giving them 0 points. It's like all the effort they put into that got them nothing, right? So I at least want to get them half credit for any reasonable attempt. If you give me nonsense that, like gobbledygook answers, then I'll give 0. But anything that's like, I'm trying, I want to reward effort. I really want to reward effort. That's my philosophy. I hope that's yours too. So you can make this whatever you want. Out of 2 really works well for me. If you want to make each question out of 10, each question out of 1, and just give them, like, if it's make each question out of 1, give them 0.5. If you want to play it plus 0.5 each time, that's fine too. I like mine out of 2. So that's that. And then you can start, and the thing with Google Forms is, you can start answering questions like, what is 2 plus 2, right? Equal, question mark. And I can make this a multiple choice question. Multiple choice is a lot of work sometimes. They can be more, so what I tend to rely on is short answer. So for me, oftentimes in my classroom, I rely on the short answer thing. And so then I can provide an answer key, I can add a correct answer, which is 4, and then I can press done. And now that'll make I'm able to grade this a lot easier, and I don't have to create wrong answers. And I feel like students will work harder, they'll try more if they have to do short answer versus multiple choice, because then it becomes a game of, and this actually helps them in terms of the testing, those high-stake tests. This helps them game the system, helps them learn how to game the questions on a test, eliminate the worst answers, reduce your probability of getting the wrong answer by eliminating bad answers, and then choose the best. That's a good skill to have, but I like to use the short answer so that they're actually kind of thinking how to what the right answer would be, which requires me to do some interpretation in the grading though too. If you do everything with multiple choice, the nice thing is your grading can be done all automatically, right? This thing can auto grade everything. If I go in here and I choose answer key, the correct answer is 4, done. Now if every time a student answers 4, it'll automatically correct them, it'll automatically give them the points for this, and it'll just move on. I have to kind of do a little bit more manually grading, which I'll show you how that looks in this video, hopefully. One thing I will say is you want the first question, make your first question, what is your name? And the reason why is because it will collect email addresses, but maybe if your district's like mine, those email addresses, you don't know what each student's email address is. So I recommend making the first question, what is your name? And then making that a short answer, and then making that 0 points. I sometimes leave it as 2 points, because what the heck, let's give them 2 points for it. But sometimes you might want to just give them 0 points for what is your name. And And I know that. So now, right at the top, the first thing. So when I look at responses later, I'm going to see what their name is as the first question, and I kind of get an idea of who's who. But maybe you want to keep things more anonymous. Maybe that's how you want to do. Why Google Forms? I recommend Google Forms over other possibilities like Google Docs or Google's Slides because of the ease of grading. The grading is why I stick with Google Forms, because I can provide so much better feedback, I think. You can do feedback great with Docs, and I'm not saying you can't. It's just that there's some really nice abilities, and also let me show you how that works too. So I'm going to go, you can't see what I'm clicking over here, but I'm looking for I'm going to go to a different class. I'm going to go to my advanced algebra class. Advanced Algebra with Financial Applications, and I want you to see what this looks like when everything is done and why I recommend it. So here's section 5. We just got done with section 5. I've actually already graded these, but I'm going to show you how this works. I want to view the assignment. Alright, so let's say I want to grade all this. I want to grade all this, so I am going to view the assignment. I'm going to click this little pencil here. Clicking the little pencil allows me to edit my form. Alright, I'm going to go to my responses. Clicking on responses because I'm going to be grading. Alright, and here's one thing I like about Google Forms. The data. It gives you this excellent data. It tells me, here's my point distribution. I have one student here who got like a 85, and I got two students here who are struggling with a 12 and a 14. Out of like 90 points, right? Apologize for that. That little ding will happen every 15 minutes. I got a grandfather clock in here. So it'll give me frequently missed questions, so I can see where students are struggling, which questions are throwing them off the most. Because I only have 3 students and 2 of them have only partially completed this data is going to be thrown off by a little bit. But I get to see their scores right off the bat. I can see what they answered on each of these questions, right? So I can get to see where the common errors happen, where the common correct answers happen. I can start to look at all that, and I can talk about this. I could review this the day after in class or in a video and say, look, you all did great on this question here. 3 out of 3. Everyone did wonderful. This question threw everyone off, right? So I can actually just kind of scan through and look. So I love this data, and sometimes it'll even give you pie charts and things like that about where everyone is, and it's telling me the average, the median, and the range, right? This kind of data is wonderful for assessing whether the students are learning. And then normally when I'm grading these, I'm going to grade, if I have more than one student to grade, I'm going to be grading by question. So here this is the what is your name question, right? This is where I press the green little arrow. They all get 2 points for that, because what the heck. And now I'm going to move on to question 2. I'm going to grade question 2. What's the learning target? They all just copied and pasted it, so it's all here. So I clicked the green arrow to say they all got 2 points for that. I'm moving on to the next question. The next question is, what's 2 consecutive integers such that the sum of 3 times the first and twice the second is 27? So this person did that, built that equation up to show me what that equation would look like. Yep, that gets them 2 points. So you get the idea. I'm going from question to question. I don't know who's who here. Notice I don't know what student is what. I'm actually just grading based on the answer. I got 2 responses that are blank. They don't get anything. I don't give credit for blank answers. You've got to give me a reasonable shot, some kind of reasonable attempt. I want to reward effort. This person did it. Green, good. And of course, I can also throw down an answer key. I can see the answer key. I should see 110. I don't know why this is 100. This answer key is clearly wrong. The answer is 5, and this student got it. X is 5, right? Because 5 is the number such that if 2 consecutive, well, X is 5, and then the next consecutive number is going to be 6, right? So that's how that looks. So there's that grading. So you're saying to yourself, okay, that looks like it's somewhat intense. Yeah, you gotta, but you are. What I like about this is I'm looking at everyone's question at the same time, right? So I'm looking for the same kind of thing. I can kind of scan, like, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? And I'm clicking green arrow or this for 0 points, the green arrow for full points. And if I feel like they got partial credit, I can add 1 there and give them partial credit. And then when I'm done, I go through all my questions. I can also, by the way, I can also grade individually. Like I could just do this student's answer here, and I could just look at the student's answers, and I could give them credit. So I don't know why that says 110 for the correct answer. That answer key's wrong. but I can just kind of go and scan through their paper and what they responded to me. And here is the beautiful part. Here is the beautiful part. Are you ready for this? Once I've graded all my student stuff, I can then click Import Grades, ooh la la, Import, and then the grade they got on that form is imported into Google Classroom, and there's the 3 grades right there, right? There's the 3 students, and so now the students can see their grades directly from Google Classroom, and now I can just transfer this on over to PowerTeacher when I need to my actual grade book. And so been loving this, been loving the ability to import grades so the students see immediately. Oh, and I forgot to show you even a better thing here. When I see an error on a question, it's the feedback. The feedback's one of the great things. So here's me giving feedback to the student. The question said, determine the depreciation percentage. This is the correct number, but I had to go and click, I had to provide feedback and said to the student, remember to use a percent sign and a negative sign. Because yes, this is the correct number, I'm going to give them full credit, but there should be a negative here because it's depreciation, there should be a percent sign. So for every question I can provide that kind of detailed feedback, which, normally I wouldn't even write that out on a paper, right? I would just circle it and have them talk to me or something. I'd give them a little sign for, but when I'm just typing, it's nothing to start providing feedback to students for questions. Remember to express it as a percentage. Just my feedback to the student, they're going to see that I gave them 3 out of 4 because they gave me the R value here, and I wanted the depreciation. They're giving me the rate expressed as a decimal, and it's asking and express it as a percentage. So I was taking off like 1 point, and the student turns it back into me. I'll see that, and then I can correct that grade, and then that way it's part of the learning process of identifying I want the students to realize that part of the learning process is identifying your errors, fixing them, and getting them turned back in, right? Learn from mistakes. So then these are all my responses. So, okay, where was I? Yes, I was over here, I believe. No, actually, I think I did want to show you some stuff over here. Building these forms. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can add images. You can add images to these forms. So it allows you to just go on Google and search for images. Whatever works for you. I was doing a geometry lesson where I was talking about angles and parallel and stuff. Well, this guy here. He builds these houses and buildings out of just playing cards that are just standing, right? So there's a lot of angles going on where the cards are sitting on top of each other, and so you can kind of pique students' interest with that kind of thing. You can add videos over here, right? Any kind of anything on YouTube, you can find it, paste it. Let's see. Gosh, copy, get a shareable link, copy to the keyboard. I'm sorry, the clipboard, and there I can post my own video that I've already done in this right here. So click on that, select. So videos can go on in here. You can provide all sorts of text. So this is like when I press these, I can provide text. So some written instructions, some written information, things for them to read, poems, paragraphs, anything you want them to read. Primary documents can go in there. Pictures of primary documents can be posted, and then of course adding questions. And this is neat. You can actually import questions. So when I use import question quite a lot, I will import questions from previous lessons in order to gain for warm-ups, for instance. So for instance, some of the questions we did yesterday might become a warm-up question the next day to get their mind thinking about what we did yesterday. And so you can import questions from previous forms that you've created. You can create multiple sections, and you can do all sorts. Let's see, I don't think I went over all the kinds of questions. So you can do multiple choice questions, check boxes, drop down menus, have them write paragraphs. Do you want students to write you a paragraph, a long answer? Give them a question. I'm not sure right now what I want them to write, but I usually use short answer for math kind of things, but sometimes I ask them in math to explain how this works, explain how that works, and anything you want them to write more than one sentence, it's time to ask them for a paragraph. Paragraphs are, you'll have to grade those on your own. The computer can't do that automatically. You have linear scales. I haven't played around too much with some of these, but yeah. So let me show you one that I've done to give you an idea, or one that's partially done at least. No. All right, we're recording again. So this is that form that I have mostly or partially done. It has a lot of the stuff that I need for a lesson plan and a student handout, but it is missing a lot of the core, right? I've got some warm-ups, which I imported from a previous lesson. Remember, I just pressed import questions to get these from a previous lesson, to get the students thinking about what we learned the day previous. I have a little bookmark in mind. This is just a blank application. This reminds me that for every lesson, I need to find some kind of application. This is a personal thing for me. You might not have this in yours, but I want to show the students, like, how do you apply this math in a real life context? Sometimes I gotta stretch a little bit, like the whole card thing, building houses out of cards. I admit that's a stretch, but it is real life. There is a person using this, and then usually I'll have a couple application questions. Then you always got to have, at least I would hope you'd have some kind of formative assessment in terms of, you might call it whatever you want to call it, but I often call it check for understanding. These are the ones that help. These are the questions are the ones that will help you know whether the students get it. And sometimes I'll have an evidence for understanding, which is really just a restatement of my learning targets without the I can. And I like this little piece I've added. You can choose whether to add this on it or not. I ask the question to the students, well, were you successful at meeting the learning target, right? Were you successful at that? Did you do great? Did you do good? Okay. Do you need to improve? I want the students to try to answer this for themselves. What do you? I give them credit for whatever they choose, but I want them to actually think, was I successful at meeting those learning targets? And this data is important for me to understand how the students feel at the end of the lesson, after they've received their instruction. Then I ask the students to rate their own performance, how well you contributed to your learning group or your group role. I might have to remove this since I don't have a lot of group stuff in a lot of my classes. But did you do great? Did you participate in class? Did you do good? Did you complete some of your classwork at least? Did you do okay? Or do you need to improve? This is a big one for me. Assess the effort you put into learning. Did you put forth your best effort, good effort? I want the students to make a connection between their effort and how well they do in school, because effort's what it's all about for me. I also like to ask this question, what's one thing you learned today that maybe you didn't expect to learn? Usually, Mr. Soul can go off topic. We might learn about, even a lesson about geometry, we might learn about magnetism or something if the topic comes up, or the coronavirus or something, how viruses transmit through a population. And then optional feedback. I always want to be open to students telling me, hey, Mr. Salt, you're talking too fast again. Oh, sorry, I'll try to slow down. This here is an extension. This is for my high flyers in class. Anyone who wants to maybe stretch themselves a little bit. This is where I stick the hard questions. I don't penalize. Students don't have to do the extension, but gosh, it warms my little black heart when they do it. Right? I don't get too many takers on the extension, to be honest. And here's my I keep a little list of my priorities, my classroom values, the school values, and a little credo at the end. I feel bad when I print these out because it seems like I'm wasting paper to print the same thing out every day. But I feel these are so core to my educational philosophy and everything that I want to communicate that to the students, and this is how I do that. So what this lesson is really missing is the middle, right? I've got the framework of a lesson, but I'm missing some of that. So I'll show you how I do this next part. How do I know what to do after the warm up? Well, I got to look at the learning target. The learning target was I wanted students, and where do I get the learning target? I got that from the Common Core Standards, right? I'm looking at what Common Core Standards have I hit so far, what do my students still need, what builds off of what we've already learned. So I decided that at this point, students are in a place where they will need to understand how to use lines formed by a transversal to prove two lines are parallel, because they probably already looked at how all the different, what angles are congruent to each other when two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. So now they're going to prove lines are parallel based on the fact that they're cut by a transversal. So that's what we got to do, and now I need to go find material for that. And I'm going to pause here and then start it back up when I find some material. All right. Well, welcome back. As I went to go find material, I realized that I had already done the lesson about parallel lines, and that this was just a copy of a previous lesson. So one of the things I'll show you how I'll do is after I get done with the lesson, what I'll do is I'll make a copy of that lesson, and then I'll change the copy, and I'll get rid of all the content-specific curriculum stuff from that lesson, and just keep things like the warm-up, the learning targets, the things I know I'll need for every lesson, your name, the vocabulary. I'll just keep those things, and then I get rid of everything else. And so this was, unfortunately, I had not renamed it. So actually, this is going to be about, that last lesson was about parallel lines. So this one's about perpendicular lines. So this one actually is not going to be about perpendicular. And so we need a new learning target. I can prove and apply the theorem is about perpendicular lines, right? We're going to have some additional vocabulary involved with this one. I found so I have some new standards, as you'll note. I have a vocabulary. I have a vocabulary section, and I like that. Put that there. Sorry, I won't do all. I gotta try not to be tempted to actually do this here. So students are going on their name, write down the learning targets. Apologize for that. Usually I'll spend some time going over the vocabulary. They'll do some warm-ups. The warm-ups are imported from a previous lesson. And I told you, then now we need to go find some material, right? So you get material from all different places. Sometimes I go online. Sometimes I use textbooks. Sometimes I go to, there's all sorts of sources of stuff. You probably have your sources. Whatever your sources are, it's handy if you can find a PDF copy. So, for instance, the school uses a textbook, looks like this, that I can often use for a source. I needed to go and find an electronic version of that. So I didn't find the exact version online, but I was able to find a version from Texas, which is the exact same book, but with Texas standards. So then it's my job just to put in the New York standards in there, right? So, this is going to give me some ideas about what kind of material I can use in my lesson. So I want to talk about perpendicular bisectors, and maybe I know eventually I'm going to have the students take a look at a construction. Now the actual physical construction will be kind of hard to do on online distant learning. I've been able to overcome that with Google Draw, but I'm not going to do that. That's too content specific. Unless you're a geometry teacher, you won't need that. But, and I didn't explain anything what I was doing here. Okay, here's what I'm doing. Call it Geo1. Geo1. Alright, so what I did was I clicked on the snipping tool. Now maybe your snipping tool isn't right there like mine is conveniently placed, but if you pressed snipping here, snipping, you can snip. There's your snipping tool, right? Mine's already on. Snipping tool looks like this. I press new. I want to use this in my lesson, so I press new. I am going to try to size this up for what I want. I'm going to try to take a snapshot of this piece because I want to show the students this image. The snipping tool then takes a snapshot of that picture. I then want to save. I want to save this picture. I have a special folder. I just happen to call it stats assignment, and I'm going to give this, I called it Geo1 a second ago. I call it Geo1 again. It's going to ask me if I want to replace it, or maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so now, when I want to put this into my lesson, I'm going to click on the lesson, the question that I want to have that happens before this, and I'm going to click Add Image. Please add image. I'm going to upload this right here. Alright, there's my Geo1. There's my image being uploaded. And now the image from the textbook or whatever material you use is then uploaded and can be shared with your students. So I'm going to write notes because this indicates to the students there's nothing for you to do, nothing for you to write. Constructing a perpendicular bisector of a segment. Alright, and then as you want to be kind of judicious, you don't want to put every single thing you see in the textbook on here, but definitely I use a lot of these examples, right? So this example provides some instruction. So I will want to show them this example. I might actually want some of this text here too, so I'm going to copy this text into my clipboard. I'm going to take a snippet of this right here, new. I call this example 1. I want the students to see this example. I'm then going to press save, call it GO2, GO2, go back into my lesson, and again, this is just instruction, so I'm just going to add image. There's nothing for the kids to do. There it is, GO2. I'm uploading, and I'm going to call this example 1, notes, example 1. Distance from a point to a line, and then remember that what I copied in my keyboard. I'm going to add some text in here. So I'm providing them a little like an electronic version of. Oh, apparently that didn't copy. So I'm going to press copy over here. Going back over. There it is. And I'll give it a title of the shortest segment from a point to a line is perpendicular to the line. Alright? So whatever material you want to use, and they like these theorems, I might capture these and throw these theorems on there. I might do these proofs. I'm going to probably, no, I'm going to skip the proof. Again, I'm being judicious. My students are struggling with proofs, and I'm going to not mess around with proofs right now because they're struggling so much with them. And then example 2 is a proof. So I'm going to have to make some instructional decisions here about what I'm going to add, what I'm not going to add, because they're struggling so much with proofs. So I'm going to need to give this some consideration of what I want to add, what I don't want to add. But then when I choose, oh, this looks good, I like this. You'll have to, whatever materials you use, you can copy images, you can copy text, you can, whatever you can find electronic version of, you can piece together. And then in terms of exercises, you can start doing questions. So for instance, like I says name the shortest segment from point E to AD. So in order to answer this question, they need this diagram. So I'm going to take a snippet of the diagram. New. And there's my snippet. I'm saving it, GO3. GO3. Sorry. I'm going to copy this here. Oop, no, that's not going to work because this the formatting of this particular new question. It's going to actually come after the examples. I'm going to paste that piece of the sentence in there. I'm going to paste this piece in there. Why I do it this way? Because when I noticed that when I highlighted the whole sentence, it highlighted this stuff too, which meant that it was going to be funky for me. Your PDF might not do that to you. I noticed that it didn't copy quite right for me because I have some funny things, so I'm going to have to add from point E to line AD. To line AD, and I'm just going to get rid of that funkiness. And then I'm going to add that diagram. There's GO3. Alright, and then I'm going to have this be a short answer. And so name the shortest segment from point E to line AD. To line AD. Well, the shortest distance to line AD is going to be the perpendicular. It's going to be the distance of EB. So my answer key is distance from EB. And then, or 7, right? 7, they just told me the distance was 7, so I knew that. So that question's done, and I can grade that when I get to it. So this is the idea. You get the idea. You start you're importing questions from whatever source you're using. PDFs work, any online websites work, any kind of image you can think of, text, you can copy and paste, videos, have the kids watch, answer questions on those videos. I think you get the idea of how I'm using Google Forms to create assignments now. And then once you get the assignment, you need to actually paste it into your classroom. So that's the next step. So I'm trying to find where my Google Classroom is. Nope, that's Power School. There's my Google Classroom. I gotta go to Geometry. Okay, there it is. I'm gonna go to Classwork. I want to create a new assignment. I'm going to remember what this is. This is called, I'm calling it GOU3L4. Alright, GOU3L4 assignment. GOU3L4. I'm going to add from my Google Drive, this Google Doc, this is a Google form. GOU3L, that's the one right there, clicking on it. Alright, there's the Google form. You don't, this is important, when you're attaching your Google form to your assignment, don't put anything else in here. If you put anything else in here, this little grade importing thing goes away. Alright, and if you want to be able to grade import, which is the whole point of having these, you want to make sure you don't add it. So if you want to add a video instruction, unfortunately at this point, you have to add the video instruction as a separate thing. I would love to add my video instruction right in here along with this. If this was a quiz, you might want to turn on locked mode on Chromebooks. Locked mode on Chromebook means the student can only access your Google form. They can't look anything up online from the Google Chromebook. They can't have any other tabs open on Google. Sorry, some background noise was happening for me. They can't have any other open tabs or look for anything if locked mode is on. This is not a quiz for me, so I am not going to put locked mode on. The topic is going to be Geometry Unit 3, which I don't have, so I need to add that as a topic. Geometry Unit 3. This is for a unit I haven't started posting yet. I'm a little ahead of the curve there. I'm going to schedule this. I don't know how far I need to schedule this above. I'm going to schedule it for the end of April at 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m. on April 27th, this will just drop to the Google Classroom. There's no due date on it yet. So now it's scheduled. It'll just sit there invisible to the students until April 27th. And if I find that I want to drop it earlier, I can always change that date at which it'll drop. I just don't want to put too much on the Google Classroom stream for the students all at once. So that is Google Classroom, Google Forms. I think I'm not going to talk about how to do Google assignments other than Google Forms. I think a lot of you either know how to do that or can figure that out, or if you're requesting you need that instruction, I can provide that too. But then I need to show you how I provide the video instruction, right? So I'll show you what it looks like for me. This is an assignment, angle pairs, the students would have to do. This is the Google form they would click on to complete that assignment. So they'll click on it. This one's done, right? There's our learning targets, there's our vocabulary, there's our questions, there's the meat, all the notes, all the exercises. Most of this is all lifted from the textbook, but like this is something I added. This had nothing to do with the textbook. Some of the images I added, which have nothing to do with the textbook, but just I thought they were interesting. Interesting stuff. So then I had to check for understanding. Everything's done. All right, students are going to complete this. They'll click submit. That will go into, you'll have to grade it. Once you have it graded, you will then be able to view the assignment and import, not right now. Sorry, household interruption. Okay, once you get the graded, you're going to import grades. The grades are going to go in here. And then you're going to need a video, right? You're going to need some instruction because we're doing some distance learning now. That's what's changing. So, I need to go back into geometry. So that same lesson, right next to it, I've got some video instruction for this lesson. They click on this, and there it is. And I want to show you how this goes. Hey, good morning or afternoon, you lucky people, you. Because we seem to have some time off from school, but you know me, we're not going to let that learning lack, all right? So there's my instructional video, right, as I'm bringing it back. And how I use this, I use a software called Camtasia. That's how I do this. So you maybe noticed this little screen popping up here. This tells me my video so far is 44 minutes and 23 seconds. And there's my little my webcam, and there's the audio from my microphone. So right now it's recording everything that happens on my screen in a specified area. It's recording my webcam, and when I press stop, it'll take me to this little editor version right here, where I can then edit the video that I'm recording. I'm going to make the little webcam in the left-hand corner. I'm going to resize it, and then I'm going to export it to as MP3.4. And then and that takes some time. Like that, this part is where a lot of the time gets sucked away as you're like doing the video editing, which is why I don't even bother editing those coughs out. Right, that takes too much time. I apologize for that. But that's just what it is. So then when I get done, I'm going to go to, just apologize for the little thing. I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm going to click on the little button that says create, right? And it'll drop down a thing that says upload video. I'm going to upload the video, the MP3.4 that I finished processing and rendering. It takes about a half an hour to an hour to render about an hour video on my computer. Maybe it'll be a lot faster on yours. And then that goes over here, and then once I have the video uploaded and processed to YouTube, I can then add that as material, video instruction to the lesson that I'm using. There are other options though. There's a thing called Screencastify. Screencastify allows you to also record your webcam and what's happening on your screen at once. You kind of need something that records that screen, because if you want to show the students if you want to give them video instruction, you're going to need to be playing around with with what you're doing, whether it's a Google Doc or a Google Slides or a Google Form. I also use a piece of software that's free called iPivo Annotator. It's like a cheap smart notebook for my own house type screen, and I can have markers and pens show up here. So like when I actually need to do some math, I can write a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now what I don't have right now is a fancy little drawing pad. One of my children have walked off with the stylus from my old drawing pad, so I need to either find that or get myself one. That stylus has been missing for months now, so I think I'm going to have to get another one. And that makes it the drawing pad is a little electronic thing, hooks up to your computer, and you can draw on it, and it's a lot easier actually writing with a pen than writing with a mouse. So that will make my life easier in that way. And then of course for math, there's the ability to do straight lines. It's also got some tools in here, like it's got a circle tool, rectangle tool, compass tool, as well as a ruler, protractor, a magnifier, and these kinds of things. This is all free. iPivo Annotator, Screen Annotator, and then once I want, every time I click this, it makes everything go away, and then what else? Oh, and when I click the little trash can, it all just deletes, and I can move that off the screen so no one sees what's going on there. And if you are using your district laptop, you can use a Smart Notebook, which has a lot more tools, and it's a little bit easier for you. I have been able to use Smart Notebook to do the actual recording for some of these, but I don't know how it works for you. Both my laptop and my classroom computer, they crash if any video is over 5 minutes. Everything looks fine, everything looks like it's recording fine, but once I get over the 5-minute mark, the video will fail to process, and then I'm back to scratch. So I use Camtasia at home. I can't install it on my district computer because I don't have admin privileges to install anything, so I have to produce all these at home on my own machines. Camtasia, I forget the pricing on Camtasia. Screencastify is free for 5 minutes. If you can download it and use it. It's a thing that goes on right on Google Chrome, and you can do up to 5-minute videos. So if you want to just do 5-minute videos of instruction at a time, up to 5 minutes per video, you can use Screencastify. If you want longer videos, they have a subscription. I don't like subscriptions, but $49 per year is pretty reasonable. You can go and Google you can go look for what Camtasia costs. I think it's about $100 for Camtasia. So there are some options for you, and there's also other options, right? You could go to YouTube and do some live streaming, right? YouTube live stream. And I've done, but the problem with live streaming is that you'd have to have paper and showing the kids, here's my paper, and here's what it looks like, and I'm doing it and kind of showing you. If you happen to have a document camera at home, I've got a document camera here. It's not nearly as nice as the ones we have at work, but it's decent. And so I could also use a document camera, and I've done that in the past, to have it do a document camera instead of the webcam, and that way they can actually see what it's like. They can see what I'm drawing at once. This is apparently this is some artwork by my 7-year-old, right? So, what else? What else? I think that's about it, right? Okay, this is a 50-minute video. This is what I've been doing in terms of distance learning and helping my students who are having attendance issues learn outside the classroom. The video instruction's new. That's the new development. It takes some extra time, but it looks like I'm going to have some time on my hands. So as this stuff rolls out, that's what I'm doing. I hope you learned something useful for you and your classroom. And I hope you got some ideas generated on how maybe you can change or develop your Google Classroom and distance learning stuff to help your students. Have a good day.